Hey, what's up guys, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you 5 quick tips to double your editing speed. Now we all know how important editing is in Fortnite, as well as how popular it's gotten over the past few months, with a lot of big names such as Raider464 and your Yossi blowing up over this in-game mechanic. So I'm here to give you the tools, tips and secrets you may not know to become a faster editor. If you guys want to support the video by dropping a like, that is much appreciated, and subscribe for more content just like this. But with that all being said, let's get into it. So tip number 1, let's get the most boring but underrated tip out of the way first. Consistency. You know it, I know it, it's the one thing above every piece of advice you get for editing. Consistency conquers all, and I mean that. Too many kids are watching some cracked out editor and they're looking for his settings, his binds, if he plays claw, what gaming chair he uses, just everything that isn't as necessary as you think it is. What people don't realize is that you need to find a sensitivity that works for you. Not Raider, not your Yossi, not Jimmy, not me. You. Doesn't matter if it's a high sense or low sense, we all control an analog stick differently. Just pick one, put in the hours, and be consistent. Tip number 2, now this is a big one, double edit binds. So if you play on controller and you aren't using double edit binds, I highly recommend you do. Like highly recommend it. And if for some reason you've been living under a rock and you don't know what double edit binds are, I also highly recommend you go watch this video. It was one of the first double edit bind videos ever made, and it's helped so many people out. I think it's got about 1.6 million views now, and it's just a video I made that covers everything you need to know about double edit binds on controller. But for the sake of this video, it's basically where you have a separate edit, select, and confirm button. So for me, that's touchpad edit, R1 select, and R2 confirm. There are a lot of double edit bind combinations out there that you can use, but one thing you want to keep in mind is R1 select, and I'll show you why. So up on screen at the moment, I have a gamepad viewer, which allows me to show you my analog stick movements as well as my button presses. So as you can see, R1 is at B5, so as soon as I press R1, as you can see, it goes from 0 to 1, so 0 meaning off and 1 meaning on. So it's just 0, as soon as I press R1, it goes to 1. The R2 button actually activates as soon as a number is detected. So as you can see, if I bring my R2 button close to the camera, I only need to push it in. See, it's only on 5, it's on 10. I'm only pushing it in that much and it's activating. You don't need to push it in all the way. So all that unnecessary space you're pushing it in to charge up the button is going to slow down your edits. So this is why R1 is better, because as soon as you press the button, no matter how light you press it, it's 0 to 1. So using R1 select as an instant button press rather than a sensitive charge up button will ensure your editing speed feel a lot more snappy and more consistent. Out of all the people I've told to swap to R1 select, they've thanked me on how much cleaner and more responsive that it feels. So try it out for yourself. Tip number 3 is smaller movement pathways. Now this is insane and no one ever talks about this. Now I play on a 1010 sensitivity with a 2.0 editing sense, which is the absolute fastest sensitivity you can have in the game for editing, but I control it so well. And you probably ask how? Well, not only am I super consistent and creative, but control freaks play a huge role in the precision of my editing, and let me show you why. Playing on a maximum sensitivity, control freaks allow me to get those tiny movement pathways I need in order to edit. I've made multiple videos on control freaks, but basically the longer the analog stick, the more range of motion you get, therefore the more accurate your editing will be. So as you can see, all I have to do is just shake my analog stick, get that tiny little movement. I'm not editing out here. I'm just doing this tiny little movement pathway here, just this tiny circle here in order to edit. So if I'm doing a half wall edit, it's literally just that. It's not this. I'm not swiping down to Narnia, alright? Narnia doesn't want your edits. It's literally just a tiny little thing like that. And as you can see, I'm on 1010 with the 2.0 editing sense, so the fastest sensitivity in the game. Yeah, it's super easy. Instead of editing out here and swiping down here, all you need to do is just look in the center here and get that tiny little movement there, and it's going to speed up your edits and make them look a whole lot cleaner. And that goes with all edits. So if you're doing a top edit wall swipe, you're not swiping over here, alright? All you got to do is just that, alright? As soon as you get to the end, confirm and then flick back. So it's just, alright, you're not doing this, alright? You don't need to go over here. When you're doing downward swipes, you don't need to swipe down here. It's all about finding ways to keep your movement pathways as short as possible. So I'm just going from here to here, from here to here, alright? None of this, alright? I'm just keeping it as short and as simple as possible. So just swipe that way, up, they're up. I've made multiple videos on Control Freaks, so I do recommend you go check them out. Now I am partnered with Control Freaks because I do love their products so much. So if you click the link in the description, you can use code Flea for 10% off. Tip number 4, now this is gonna sound pretty dumb, but press the buttons faster. Now I know you're probably like, well, Flea, obviously. But hear me out. I've literally doubled, maybe even tripled my editing speed over this one tip. Instead of editing how you always do, take a second and actually be conscious of what buttons you're pressing and then press them one after another as quick as possible. If you're using double edit binds, the only thing slowing you down is your fingers. From when you open an edit to when you select a square to when you confirm it, that is all client side, which means ping is not involved in these buttons. So press them as quick as possible, one after another. You'd be surprised how much quicker your double edits can be if you actually consciously think and press the buttons as fast as possible. Now that's the biggest thing that helped me because it's something you don't actually think about. You just normally let your fingers do what they're used to, but I'm telling you right now, you can 100% do it faster. I highly recommend you use this map to practice your edits. I'll leave the code in the description. And now for the final tip, tip number 5 is low dead zones and a secret setting called foot controller. Now I made a video on this foot controller setting a few days ago and it's blown up with already 300,000 views. But basically what it is you go into your settings, you go over to your colorblind settings and you go down to where it says enable foot controller. What you want to do is you want to turn that on and you want to turn these down to the lowest. It should feel like it removed a lot of controller acceleration, therefore speeding up the initial sensitivity movement, therefore speeding up your edits. Unfortunately, Xbox players can't access this feature, but on controller on PS4 and controller on PC players, you just have to have the controller plugged in. And for your dead zone, is just run the lowest right stick dead zone you possibly can without too much stick drift. A little bit of stick drift doesn't matter, but I have a brand new controller so I don't get any. It's just super important you run a low dead zone so you can get those small movements. So low dead zone comboed with the foot controller setting, comboed with Control Freaks, you're gonna have some clean and quick movements when editing. And that's gonna do it for 5 tips to double your editing speed. If you made it to the end of the video, then you're a very smart cookie who just learned a lot of super useful information. So drop a fire emoji in the comments. Also use code Flea if you want to support more informative videos just like this. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you learned something and I'll see you in the next one.